Have you ever wanted to feel really bad about yourself for criticizing a development team? Well, look no further but this post coming from Kaplan. I mean, I'm certain that by the time this video goes live, the news channels have already reported on this, so I'm confident that you are aware of what I'm talking about. If not, then you can read up on it yourself by following the link in the description below. The basic gist of it is that Kaplan, as a representative of the Overwatch development team, has let us know that, in essence, developers are people too, people with feelings, and having us constantly bash on them naturally does not feel nice. Now, there's no need for you to have read their post in order to understand what we're going to discuss today. I'm going to briefly reference it, but the context in which this discussion is held does not require you to know every word said from that post. But I still do recommend reading up on it yourself, as it does give away a very interesting perspective. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. So as you can probably guess by simply reading the title, today's topic is transparency. A transparency that I, along with many other content creators as also regular players, have been asking for. You see, the lack of transparency in game development creates a lot of misinformation based on rumors. We are combating a lot of misconceptions in the community surrounding things like the MMR and SR distribution systems because the developers refuse to give us more information. And naturally, they get criticized heavily by many voices for any single thing that annoys us as players. I mean, I'm sure that they are aware that a lack of information creates a level of insecurity and frustration that often leads to people snapping more quickly in response to something that they don't like. But they cannot tell us everything we want to know because that would open the doors for players to abuse the system, so a certain level of secrecy is certainly necessary. The frustration that the player base voices can take a few different forms, all the way from people silently cursing to themselves, to openly criticizing the developers in a forum post, up to YouTube videos of creators exaggeratingly complaining about anything that annoys them. Yes, I am frustrated, and I am not the only one. The way you handle hero balance and the fact that you take your sweet time to fix anything is annoying as all hell. And oh look, despite you saying that dive is fine, D.Va's defense matrix has been tweaked. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I don't think anyone is. Naturally, I am not free of this sin, so to speak, myself. I've openly voiced my opinion on many things that I think need fixing, and I have never made it a secret when something frustrated me. This kind of emotional response is to be expected if you look at it from our perspective, the consumer. We are told very little in regards to what we actually want to know. We hear very little of the problems that bother us being worked on, and ultimately we snap. I don't want to claim that me, again, exaggeratingly shouting into my microphone in frustration was the right thing to do. It wasn't. But obviously, on my channel, I care very little for what is the right thing to do, and care more so about voicing my opinion in whatever exaggerated or less so exaggerated manner I want. I think it goes without saying that I would never directly snap at any of the developers if I had the chance to talk to them one-on-one. But if my channel was an extension of my unfiltered thoughts, then the videos are exactly representing what that would look like. Now, something I won't get around considering is that Blizzard is absolutely amazing when it comes to manipulating the hype surrounding their games. Their way of getting players to talk about exactly what they want them to talk about is something I admire. It speaks of phenomenal marketing in my opinion. In that same vein, when we look at the developer update that talked about the toxicity in the game starting to get overwhelming, as also a number of forum posts including this one, I can't help but think that there's always more to the message than meets the eye. Something that on the surface looks like a heartfelt message from the development team trying to express their struggles in communicating with the players, then quickly turns into a marketing move that attempts to get the players to stop mindlessly bashing the game and by that ruin its reputation. However, I am not enough of a business-focused person to assume that what they communicated to us was not genuine. Anything they said to me made sense. And if you allow me to speak openly for a moment, it's scary. Overall, the community is awesome to us, but there are some pretty mean people out there. All of our developers are free to post on these forums. Very few of us actually do because it's extremely intimidating and or time-consuming. Jeff goes on to describe the imbalance in this developer-to-player relationship where they openly face us with their real names and no mask to hide behind, whereas we have the luxury of hiding behind our online handles. And that, as we all know, comes with a lot of keyboard bravery and subsequently unnecessary levels of hostility. Based on this post, I think it's fair to suggest that Jeff is describing situations where even if a developer sat down in an attempt to explain something to a player that they don't like, the player might refuse to want to be educated on the complexity of the problem, which is a very time-intensive and, needless to say, annoying endeavor. Not to mention all the players that don't even want answers or solutions to begin with. They simply let out their anger by mindlessly insulting those they deem responsible for their mood and go as far as to sending threats and the like. These individuals and the frequency of their misbehavior are obviously born in the sheer scale this game has reached, with millions upon millions of players competing in Overwatch every day. Naturally, some developers would feel uncomfortable to speak openly in an environment that might be hostile to them the second they say something that does not please the angry hyenas that call themselves part of this community. One massive problem developers face with speaking openly to their player base is that there's an unspoken agreement to any word they utter being a law. That means that even if a developer was only vaguely speaking of an idea, players would decide to take it as a promise that these things would eventually make it into the game. And even further than that, they expect the mention of any change to come with the implementation of these changes in the very near future. And that makes it very difficult for a developer to talk about future plans in different stages of development, as a lot of things are obviously being scratched before they even make it to a public testing environment. That means that this unspoken agreement was born of the expectation sides of the player base. The developers never meant to put themselves into a situation like that, but the players forced them into it, which now limits the amount of information they can give us even further. One massive problem that comes with transparency in game development is that players are looking for information not only to satisfy their own curiosity. A lot of players are deliberately looking for more information in an attempt to abuse the system, whereas others are simply frustrated with not knowing what the game does to them and their rating. The developers have to be very careful with every word they share with us, as everything they say can easily be misinterpreted, as evidently it has happened in the past over and over again. Meanwhile, from the player's perspective, we are left to figure out which theory or piece of misinformation we decide to trust. Players eventually grow frustrated if they feel like they constantly get punished by something that they don't understand. And this frustration, as depending on the problem, it might not be something they can address openly without giving away too much information, eventually leads to very strong, often very negative reaction sides of the community. And that puts the developers in a very awkward position, because I'm certain that they are aware of the reasoning behind all the angry yelling, and they would probably want to solve these problems, but they can't know whether or not what they are about to share with us is even going to reach us in the way that we will be satisfied with the answer, and whether or not that particular piece of information can be abused by the player base. A lot of things developers do in their everyday work is a result of compromises. To us as players, things are very black and white. Solutions often seem very simple, and the question as to why they are not being implemented occurs over and over again. But reality is that we don't know how our ideas would affect the game as a whole, whether or not we forgot to consider something in our simple solution, and these are the things that developers do know, and they make decisions accordingly. Sometimes these decisions happen to be appreciated, other times not so much. And as they stated themselves, they are not free of mistakes. They too mess up occasionally. It is only human. And some of you might consider me being fairly hypocritical as I sit here arguing in favor of the developers. I do not feel sorry for expressing my frustration in past videos. All these things I mentioned today I already knew for a very long time, and I kept bringing them up in past videos as well. But that does not make me any less human. That does not eradicate my desire to want to vent, and for many of you that will also still be the case. Getting whiny at times over things we don't understand and feel screwed over by, as annoying as it is pretty normal. And I encourage you as a community to keep voicing your opinion, because it is thanks to your input that the developers have information they can work with. What is inexcusable is attacking, insulting, and threatening people, developer or not, only because you are frustrated with something. You don't have to be understanding for all the troubles a developer goes through in their communication with their player base, because honestly, these things don't concern you if you decide that they don't concern you. And you have any right in the world to distance yourself from any responsibility regarding not hurting anyone's feelings by keeping your opinion and the tone of said opinion to yourself. But each and every one of us has the responsibility to be a decent freaking human being that does not go around threatening people for meaningless BS. Bottom line is that there are a lot of things that the developers probably want to share with us to alleviate concerns, destroy misconceptions and myths, and give us more of an insight to what they are working on and what they want to keep bringing to us in the future. But every detail they share with us comes with so many potential problems, such as the player base misinterpreting or abusing the information, not being satisfied with the answer, or seeing every sneak peek as a promise, that they simply have to be really careful with what they share with us. Again, this is not me advocating in favor of stopping to be critical and stopping to voice your opinion, and it is not a plea to have all of you be as nice as possible. Just don't be a complete douchebag because of a video game. But this is me done for the day. I talk about transparency in game development and all the troubles surrounding it. If you want to add on to the discussion, then please feel free to do so down in the comment section below. If you got too much time on your hand, then why not check out my video talking about the idea of de-ranking so-called boosted players. If you enjoyed this discussion, I'm sure you like this one as well. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you all next time.